It appeared that nobody gave it any thought. Nothing was given too much thought. For many years, Mick Mars was Mötley Crüe's quiet rock star. The man who spoke through his guitar as the world around him descended into turmoil. He didn't require care. He wasn't ostentatious or noisy. When he eventually spoke at the age of 74, his fans weren't prepared for what he said. What began as a peaceful conclusion to the life of travel soon made people take notice. His image was no longer included in advertisements. Not much was said about his name. Then another person took over. No party was in attendance. No explanation was provided. Then, a subtle shift occurred that rocked the business community. A thoughtful response that gave the impression that there was more going on the entire time, rather than an outburst or tirade. Because when he left the stage, the cracks didn't begin. Below the surface, they were already there, waiting to be seen. After they were apprehended, Mötley Crüe's story underwent significant modification. Why don't we look more closely? The silent man behind Mötley Crüe's planning. Before Mick Mars wore leather, applied eyeliner, and performed in front of large crowds, he was simply a little Indiana boy named Robert Deal. Broken, obstinate, and music-obsessed. He went from unknown California bar bands to unknown ones for over 20 years before anyone called his name, getting passed up each time and having to start over. But he became stronger as a result of his failures, rejections, and hard work. At that time, most people would have given up, but he persisted and made his style known. It was blues-based, heavy, and harsh. Not ostentatious, just genuine. It wasn't their untamed appearance or reckless actions that made Mötley Crüe sound fantastic when they were created in 1981. Mick was the one. While the others drank, quarreled, and read the news, he remained silent, attentive, and cautious. When they were described as a motley-looking crew, Mick sensed an opening. Their name and trademark were derived from that line. But Mars was more than just a co-founder. He was responsible for maintaining order. Tone was more important to him than action. While the rest of the band adopted the newest styles, he stayed true to his strengths, which were tight leads and strong riffs. Dr. and Kickstart My Heart. It was more than just feel good. They were cut off by a man who saw his guitar as both a weapon and a lifeline. Even when the band was generating headlines and getting into trouble, Mick was always the first to arrive at the studio and the last to depart. However, there was a price for being calm, stable, and unwilling to play the fame game. It would soon be one of the reasons he was gazing in from the outside. The long-term anguish was invisible. However, the band didn't discuss it much, and the majority of fans were unaware of this. For the majority of his life, Mick Mars had been battling his body. He was diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, a rare condition of the spine that gradually unites the vertebrae and impairs flexibility and movement, when he was just 17 years old. He waged this silent fight every day because part of his employment required him to stand for hours on end with a heavy guitar slung over his shoulder. But he never excused himself with it. His spine was fused via surgery in 2004. Metal rods were inserted into his back just to help him stand. I've heard that the pain was excruciating. Nevertheless, for over 40 years, he continued to attend every album tour and photo shoot. Not a single broken or complaint. He was frequently the sole one performing live in the studio, according to engineers. While others employed studio trickery or backing tracks, Mick was prepared. Now that I have a guitar strapped on and some scratch paper, I'm prepared to start recording. He had changed, even behind the scenes. No pranks, arrests, or scandals occurred. All that was seen was a man focusing on his work and completing each program. But in the end, the pain got the better of him. And the band should have been shocked, and perhaps even grateful, when he ultimately told them he couldn't continue to perform. It proved to be the turning point in history. It was illogical. In October 2022, Mick Mars declared that he would no longer be going on tour. He claimed that it was difficult for him to keep up with the band's intense performances because of his health issues. His tone was calm, even gentle. He was obviously not leaving the band, only the road. People liked it at first. After everything he had been through, no one questioned him about why he was finally taking a step back. Then something started to feel off. John 5 was announced as Mötley Crüe's new guitarist almost immediately. No mention of Mars remaining in the band or claiming to be a member was made. All that was heard was a sudden switch and an odd silence. Suddenly, the advertisements for the tour were altered. There was no way to see Mars. No press reports mentioned him. His image was removed from advertisements, giving the impression that he was never a member of the band. It was not a fair change in the eyes of longtime fans. That was the feeling of a silent erase. Behind the scenes, something else was happening. Because Mick had already begun speaking with a lawyer, even if he remained silent in public. He wasn't going to let go of anything that had occurred or was being kept under wraps. Taking a step back or getting pushed out? People believed it to be a personal health decision. Mick Mars, however, started to sense that something quite different was happening behind closed doors. He clarified that he was only exiting the stage, not leaving Mötley Crüe. He considered himself a founding member who had contributed to the band's history and still owed his fair share. However, the outcome was different. Without him, the rehearsals continued. New material was released without his face. None of the band members mentioned Mick by name in their ambiguous remarks of renewed vigor and team spirit. Not even a tribute or a thank you. Furthermore, the new player John 5 was more than just a fresh guitarist. Many members of the team already knew him well, particularly Mickey 6. Some fans believed it was not merely a fill-in, but rather part of a plan. Even worse, Mick had not participated in significant decisions for years, according to those who knew him. He did not attend financial meetings. He became uninterested in any enterprise. And gradually, his vote and influence started to wane. Although he was still officially a member of the band, it appeared that they had gone on without him. Then Mick Mars did something he had never done in his career. He chose to speak up. The noise that shattered the silence. On April 6, 2023, Mick Mars finally made his voice heard, but not via fan letter. Rather, he surprised the rock world by doing something lawful. The Los Angeles Superior Court heard his case. Suddenly, everyone began to doubt everything they had assumed about his departure. The allegations in the available documents were not seen by anyone. Mick claimed that he had been gradually removed from decision-making, ownership, and earnings in addition to being shoved off the stage. He claimed that the band had covertly reduced his ownership stake in Mötley Crüe from 25% to just 5% without his consent. The allegations that they attempted to prove he was no longer fit were even more frightening. As if putting in 40 years of hard labor wasn't enough, Mick stated he had to take examinations. He described it as repulsive and degrading. The assertions made on the band's live performances, however, were what truly startled fans. A lot of what people were seeing on stage wasn't even real, Mick claimed. He claimed that Tommy Lee utilized pre-made drum recordings, and Vince Neil frequently lip-synced. Mick claimed that he stood out the most since he was the only one that played every note, and because he refused to fake it. The band responded by denying any truth. They said that Mick was forgetting songs, falling behind, and letting practices drag on longer than necessary, which prevented him from performing at the required level. However, many fans didn't think it was a creative decision, so they didn't make a decision immediately soon. That wasn't how it felt. It wasn't finished yet. Mars responds with a song. Mick Mars remained calm despite Mötley Crüe's social media outcry against the allegations. He didn't plead. He didn't play around or try to impress people by doing interviews. Instead, he reached for his guitar, which he has always played well. In February 2024, he unexpectedly released The Other Side of Mars, his debut solo album. It was an anthology of irate, raw tunes that sounded a lot like Crüe and nothing like him. The first song, Loyal to the Lie, served as a kind of warning. Rough vocals, heavy chords, and language that didn't have to but didn't call names. Critics immediately interpreted it as a clear response to all that had happened to him. But it was more than a side project. Mick assembled a fantastic band and partnered with legendary musician Michael Wagner, best known for his work with Metallica and Ozzy Osbourne. It was quite different from the hard rock, grunge, and industrial metal sound that his fans were accustomed to hearing from him. However, it was successful. The song swiftly rose to the top of both the Billboard Top 20 and the iTunes Rock charts. On message boards and social media, many fans rated it as one of the year's top rock albums. They genuinely want to do it, not because of the hype. Mick Mars had stated more than that. His CD demonstrated that he could define himself without the band's help. At 74, reborn as a hero. Before all of this, Mick Mars was the silent leader of Mötley Crüe. They are on every record, and they cover every riff. However, they are rarely given credit. He silently handled the burden and remained out of the way, while scandals and shows received all the limelight. Now, the roles are different. When The Other Side of Mars was released, it did more than merely create noise. Something was spoken. It swiftly rose into the top 20 on Billboard and to number 5 on the iTunes Rock chart. Fans paid attention and felt a close connection, not because of a large launch or well-received advertising. According to those critics who had previously disapproved of him, the record was the most candid and intimate thing he had ever done. A punch to the past, with sound as carrying, described it. It demonstrated that Mars has always been at the core of Crüe, according to Loudwire. This time, it was simply him, unlike his previous band. Each direction, tone, and riff. Only genuine music and emotion are present, free of advertisements and other distractions. For the first time, Mick was more than simply a name on a list. It has his name on the front. Even more intriguing was the response from the music industry. He began to be viewed by younger artists as a model of longevity. Sites where people used to debate Mötley Crüe's lead singers were now crowded with fans who referred to Mars as the only one who ever truly counted, while guitar veterans lauded his tone. From being viewed as an elderly member of a legacy act, he became a well-known solo musician who was at last receiving recognition. Mick Mars was never more well-known to many than he was on stage in front of the lights. The legal battle between Mick Mars and Mötley Crüe remains ongoing as of mid-2025. Although negotiations are still ongoing behind the scenes, no agreement has been made public. The band never mentions the man who helped them create their empire, but they continue to perform with their new lineup. Mick Mars, however, is moving forward with a purpose rather than rage. His second solo album, which he is currently working on, is rumored to feature more ambient, industrial, and electronic sounds. He is collaborating with a young female alternative artist, but his identity has been kept a secret. This record isn't just another one. He is beginning anew and doing it according to his own terms. Mars has also stated that he does not intend to resume touring. He is instead concentrating on his studio work, physical therapy, and the one type of attention he has ever been interested in, that which comes from his music. His influence is greater than ever, even though he now lives in tranquility in Nashville, far from the bustle. He is cited as an inspiration by many up-and-coming bands at major events like Hellfest and Aftershock. His solos, tone, and choices are dissected in podcasts and YouTube channels, not just to evoke nostalgia, but also to impart knowledge. The fact that Mick Mars, who was formerly seen as the quiet one, is now regarded as Mötley Crüe's most esteemed vocalist is another intriguing development. Not for drama or spectacle, but for being truthful, remaining true to yourself, and never fading. He is taller than ever, yet he no longer performs on stage. In the end, he didn't simply leave the band. He overcame it. Mick Mars is currently performing for himself, but Mötley Crüe is still performing. Then, did Mick Mars escape at last, or did the band cause irreparable harm? His narrative raises the question, who is really holding it up the whole time when a music star's light goes out? Please share your thoughts in the space provided below. Was Mick Mars driven out, or did he go on to something bigger? Please remember to press the bell, subscribe, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and would like to see more unsung rock star stories. It enables us to share the stories that no one else would and keeps us going. Thank you for viewing. Keep in mind that the most lasting impressions are frequently left by the silent ones.